The capture. The night sky on Veridax Prime burned with 3 moons, casting long shadows across the rocky terrain. Commander Day Kim moved silently through the darkness, his rifle pressed against his shoulder. Behind him, 4 other soldiers followed in perfect formation. They were the best humanity had to offer, Navy SEALs trained for operations on alien worlds. Day raised his fist, and the team stopped instantly. Through his thermal scope, he could see the Krell military installation 2 kilometers ahead. Massive towers of dark metal rose into the sky, surrounded by energy barriers and guard posts. The Krell were a warrior race, standing over 7 feet tall with thick armor-like skin. They had been pushing into human territory for months, and Earth needed to know what they were planning. "Command, this is Shadow Team." "We have eyes on the target," Day whispered into his comm device. Static crackled in his ear, then a voice responded. "Copy that, Shadow Team. Get your intel and get out. You have 30 minutes before the transport arrives." Day nodded to his team. They moved like ghosts across the alien landscape, using every rock and shadow for cover. Their mission was simple: plant surveillance devices and leave without being detected. No engagement, no contact, just intelligence gathering. They reached the perimeter fence without incident. Corporal Minho disabled the sensors while Sergeant Jiwon cut through the metal with a plasma torch. Within minutes, they were inside the compound. The Krell guards walked their patrol routes with mechanical precision, unaware that humans were among them. Day split his team into pairs. 2 would plant devices on the northern tower, 2 on the southern. He would handle the central command building alone. It was risky, but Day had done this 100 times before on a dozen different worlds. He climbed the exterior wall using magnetic grips, his movements smooth and practiced. Through a window, he could see Krell officers gathered around holographic displays. Their guttural language echoed through the glass, but Day's translator couldn't pick up the words from this distance. He attached a listening device to the wall and activated it. Green lights confirmed it was working. Mission accomplished. Now they just had to leave. Day climbed down and rejoined his team at the extraction point beyond the fence. Everyone was accounted for. They moved quickly toward the landing zone where their transport would pick them up. The 3 moons provided just enough light to navigate, but not enough to make them easy targets. That's when everything went wrong. The sky erupted with weapons fire. Massive Krell warships decloaked above them, their hulls blotting out the stars. Energy beams tore through the air, turning rock into molten glass. Day's team scattered, returning fire, but their small arms were nothing against capital ship weapons. "It's an ambush! Command, we need immediate extraction!" Day shouted into his comm. More static. Then silence. The Krell were jamming their communications. Minho went down first, struck by a plasma bolt that vaporized his chest. Jiwon lasted another 30 seconds before a Krell drop pod landed on his position. The other 2 members of Day's team fought valiantly, but they were outnumbered 100 to 1. Day fought like a cornered animal. His rifle ran dry, so he switched to his sidearm. When that ran out, he drew his knife. 3 Krell warriors lay dead at his feet before something massive hit him from behind. His body armor cracked, and pain exploded through his ribs. He fell to the ground, gasping for air. Armored hands grabbed him roughly, lifting him like a child. Through blurred vision, Day saw a Krell commander standing before him. The alien was larger than the others, covered in battle scars and wearing ornate armor. His eyes glowed yellow in the darkness. "A human warrior," the commander said in perfect English. "You fight well for such a small creature. I am Commander Vorath of the Krell Dominion. You are now my prisoner." Day tried to struggle, but his body wouldn't respond. They had hit him with some kind of paralytic weapon. He could only watch as they stripped him of his gear and weapons, then bound his wrists with energy cuffs. They threw him into a holding cell aboard one of the warships. The Blood Fang, they called it. As the paralytic wore off, pain returned to his body in waves. Several ribs were broken, maybe more. His left shoulder was dislocated, but he had survived worse during SEAL training. Hours passed in darkness. Then the cell door opened, and Vorath entered with 2 guards. The Krell commander studied Day like a scientist examining an interesting specimen. "Your species fascinates me," Vorath said. "So weak physically, yet you fight with such determination. Tell me, human, what gives you this strength?" Day said nothing. He had been trained for this. Name, rank, serial number. Nothing else. Vorath smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Silence. "How predictable. No matter. You will speak eventually. They always do." The torture began the next day. The Krell had sophisticated methods: pain amplifiers, neural disruptors, chemical interrogations. They wanted to know about Earth's defenses, military capabilities, and strategic plans. Day endured each session without breaking. He focused on his training, on his family, on the oath he had taken to protect humanity. Days blurred together. Day lost track of time in the cell. His body was a map of bruises and burns, but his mind remained intact. He thought about his older brother Jin, who had gone through the same SEAL training years before him. Jin had always been stronger, faster, better at everything. Day had spent his whole life trying to measure up to his brother's legend. On what Day guessed was the 5th day, Vorath entered his cell with a holographic projector. He activated it, showing an image of Day in chains being broadcast across alien communication networks. "Your capture has been announced to the galaxy," Vorath said with satisfaction. "In 3 days, you will be executed publicly as a demonstration of Krell's superiority over humanity. Your people will watch you die, and they will understand their place in this universe." After Vorath left, Day allowed himself a small smile despite the pain. The Krell had made a critical mistake. They had announced his capture. That meant Jin knew, his brother knew, and if there was one thing Day understood about his older brother, it was this: Jin never left anyone behind. The Krell had no idea what they had just brought down upon themselves. They had captured a SEAL. Now they would meet the Reaper. Day closed his eyes and waited. His rescue would come. He just had to survive long enough to see it. Captain Jin Kim stood in the briefing room of the stealth carrier Phantom, watching the holographic display with cold eyes. The image showed his younger brother Day in chains, surrounded by Krell warriors. The broadcast had been sent to every human colony and military installation in known space. It was meant to humiliate humanity. It had the opposite effect on Jin. "Sir, Coalition Command is on the line," said Lieutenant Hay Park, the ship's pilot. She was a slim woman with sharp eyes and nerves of steel. She had flown with Jin for 3 years and knew better than to interrupt him. But this was important. Jin pressed a button, and Admiral Song's face appeared on the screen. The Admiral looked tired, older than his 60 years. "Captain Kim, I know what you're thinking. The answer is no." "They have my brother," Jin said quietly. His voice was calm, but those who knew him recognized the danger in that calmness. "I know. And I'm sorry. But we cannot authorize a rescue mission. The Krell are looking for an excuse to start a full war. If we send forces into their territory, we give them exactly what they want." "Then don't send forces. Send me." The Admiral shook his head. "Jin, I understand your feelings, but—" "With respect, sir, you don't." Jin's voice never rose, never showed emotion. That made it more intimidating. "Day is my brother. I will not leave him to die at the hands of those creatures." "That's an order, Captain. You will stand down and await further instructions. We're working on diplomatic channels to negotiate his release." "Diplomacy," Jin almost smiled. "The Krell announced his execution in 3 days. What will your diplomacy accomplish in that time?" Admiral Song was silent for a moment. "I'm sorry, Jin. My hands are tied. If you disobey this order, I cannot protect you from court-martial. Your career will be over." "Understood, sir. Kim out." Jin ended the transmission and turned to face his team. They had gathered in the briefing room, watching him carefully. Staff Sergeant Tae Han, a broad-shouldered man with a gift for explosives. Lieutenant Hae Park, who could fly anything with engines. Corpsman Yoon Lee, smaller and younger than the others, but deadly with both medical tools and computer systems. "You heard the Admiral," Jin said. "This mission is not authorized. Anyone who comes with me will face court-martial, dishonorable discharge, and possibly prison time. I'm going alone if necessary." Tae cracked his knuckles. "With respect, sir, that's a stupid plan. You need a demolitions expert." "And a pilot," Hai added. "Unless you plan to swim through space." Yun adjusted his glasses. "Plus someone to hack their systems and patch you up when you do something reckless, which you will." Jin looked at each of them. These people had fought beside him for years. They were more than his team. They were his family. "You understand what you're risking?" "We understand what you're risking," Tae said. "You're risking your brother's life. That's not acceptable." Jin nodded once. "Then we have work to do. Hey, we need a ship that can get us deep into Krell space without being detected. The Phantom is too large and will be tracked." Hay pulled up a star chart. "There's a Coalition black site facility in the Sigma sector. They're testing a new stealth corvette called the Silent Blade. Experimental cloaking technology, advanced weapon systems, designed for exactly this kind of mission. How do we get it? We steal it." Jin almost smiled. "Yun, I need everything we have on the Bloodfang. Schematics, crew complement, security systems, everything." Yun's fingers flew across his datapad. "Already on it. The Bloodfang is a Krell heavy cruiser, crew of 3,000. It's currently stationed in the Vega system, about 40 light years from here. Security is tight, but their computer systems have weaknesses. I can exploit them once we're in range." "Tae, what do you need to cripple a ship that size?" Tae thought for a moment. "Their shield generators are the key. Take those out, and the ship is vulnerable. I'll need plasma charges, EMP devices, and probably some good luck." "Make a list. We acquire everything tonight." Jin pulled up the Krell broadcast again, studying every detail of the cell where Day was being held. His brother looked thin and beaten, but his eyes were still defiant. That was good. Day was a fighter. The team spent the next 12 hours preparing. They raided Coalition supply depots, taking weapons, ammunition, and equipment. No one tried to stop them. Jin's reputation preceded him. Soldiers who saw Captain Jin Kim on a mission learned quickly to stay out of his way. The hardest part was stealing the Silent Blade. The black site facility was heavily guarded, with multiple security checkpoints and armed patrols. But Yun hacked their systems. Hay forged the authorization codes, and Tae created a diversion by setting off false alarms on the other side of the base. Jin walked into the hangar like he owned it, boarded the Corvette, and powered up the engines. By the time facility security realized what was happening, the Silent Blade was already accelerating toward the jump point. Alarms blared across Coalition networks. Multiple ships were dispatched to intercept them. Admiral Song himself sent a final message. "Jin, if you do this, I cannot help you. You'll be branded a traitor." Jin ignored the message and engaged the jump drive. The Silent Blade slipped through space like its namesake. Hay piloted with precision, avoiding patrol routes and sensor grids. The experimental cloaking system worked perfectly. They were invisible to both Coalition and Krell detection systems. During the journey, Jin prepared himself mentally. He reviewed the mission parameters over and over, looking for weaknesses in his plan. There were many. The odds of success were low, the odds of survival even lower. He didn't care. Day was his brother, his responsibility. When their parents had died in the Mars colony attack 15 years ago, Jin had promised to protect his younger brother. He had failed to protect Day's team on Veridax Prime. He would not fail again. Yun intercepted Krell communications as they approached Vega system. The news was bad. Vorath had announced that Day's execution would be broadcast live across the galaxy. It would happen in 36 hours. We're cutting it close, Hayes said, checking their position. Even at maximum speed, we'll arrive with only hours to spare. Then we don't waste any time once we're there, Jin said. He turned to his team. Let's review the plan one more time. They gathered around the holographic display. The Bloodfang hung in space like a massive predator. Jin pointed to various sections of the ship. Yun, you'll hack their systems and create chaos. False alerts, disabled cameras, whatever you can do to confuse them. Tay, you'll plant charges on the shield generators here, here, and here. Hey, you keep the silent blade ready for rapid extraction. I'll go in for Day. What if they discover us before you reach him? Yun asked. Then I adapt, but I'm not leaving that ship without my brother. The rest of the journey passed in tense silence. Each member of the team checked their equipment repeatedly. Jin cleaned his weapons, tested his armor, and reviewed the layout of the Bloodfang until he could navigate it with his eyes closed. Finally, they arrived in the Vega system. The Bloodfang hung in orbit around a gas giant, surrounded by smaller escort vessels. It looked impregnable. Jin studied the ship one last time. Somewhere inside that massive structure, his brother was waiting for rescue, waiting for him. Sir, Hay said quietly, we're ready when you are. Jin checked his rifle one last time, then looked at his team. If this goes wrong, get out. Don't wait for me. Not happening, Tay said. Jin nodded. Then let's bring Day home. Infiltration. The silent blade drifted through space like a shadow, its cloaking system rendering it invisible to the Krell sensors. Inside the cramped cockpit, Hay guided the small corvette toward the massive Bloodfang with the delicate touch of a surgeon. One wrong move, one spike in their energy signature, and 3,000 Krell warriors would know they were here. Jin stood in the cargo bay, checking his equipment for the 5th time. His armor was matte black, designed to absorb light and sensor scans. His weapons were standard Coalition issue, but modified for maximum efficiency. 2 pistols, 1 rifle, combat knife, and enough ammunition to fight a small war. Sir, we're picking up Krell communications, Yun said through the comm system. They're discussing the execution schedule. It's been moved up. Jin's jaw tightened. How long do we have? 20 hours, maybe less. Then we move now. Jin turned to Tay, who was loading plasma charges into a tactical bag. You ready? Tay nodded. I'll have those shields down in 15 minutes once I reach the generators. Just try not to start a war before I'm finished. No promises. Hay maneuvered the silent blade toward a supply docking port on the Bloodfang's lower hull. According to Yun's intelligence, cargo ships came and went from this port every few hours, bringing supplies to the massive crew. Security was lighter here than the main hangar bays. We're in position, Hay said, but there's a problem. There's a cargo ship already docked. If we try to dock beside it, they might notice us when they undock. Jin thought quickly. How long until they leave? Unknown. Could be 5 minutes, could be 5 hours. We don't have 5 hours. Yun, can you fake their undocking authorization? Yun's fingers danced across his console. I can try. Give me a minute. Okay, I'm in their system. Sending the undocking command now. Through the viewport, they watched as the Krell cargo ship suddenly detached from the Bloodfang and started moving away. Inside that ship, the crew was probably confused and angry, but they wouldn't have time to protest before Hayes slipped the silent blade into the now empty docking port. The corvette connected with a soft thump. Yun immediately began working on the access codes for the docking bay door. Their encryption is primitive compared to human systems. Honestly, the Krell rely too much on physical strength and not enough on technology. Got it. Doors open. Jin and Tay entered the airlock, weapons ready. The door slid open, revealing a dimly lit cargo bay filled with containers and equipment. 2 Krell workers stood near a loading dock, speaking in their guttural language. They hadn't noticed the new arrival yet. Jin moved like smoke. He crossed the distance in seconds, knife in hand. The first Krell died without making a sound. The second turned, eyes widening in surprise. But Jin's blade found his throat before he could raise the alarm. Both bodies fell heavily to the floor. "Clear," Jin whispered into his comm. Tay emerged from the airlock, dragging their equipment. "I'll never get used to how fast you move," Tay muttered, stepping over the bodies. They dragged the corpses behind some containers and covered them with tarps. It wouldn't fool anyone for long, but they didn't need long. They just needed enough time to reach Day. Jin activated a holographic map on his wrist device. Yun had uploaded the Bloodfang's schematics, showing a maze of corridors, chambers, and passages. The detention level was deep in the ship's core, protected by multiple security checkpoints. "Tay, the shield generators are 3 levels down, Section 7. You remember the route?" "Memorized it. See you at extraction." Tay moved off into the shadows, his bag of explosives bouncing against his back. Jin went in the opposite direction, toward the central lift shaft that would take him deeper into the ship. He moved carefully, using his training to stay out of sight. When he heard Krell voices approaching, he melted into alcoves or behind equipment. When he found isolated guards, he eliminated them quickly and silently. The Krell were warriors, but they were complacent. They never expected an attack inside their own ship, certainly not from a single human. That overconfidence was their weakness. Jin reached a maintenance corridor that ran parallel to the main passages. It was dark, cramped, and filled with pipes and cables. Perfect. He crawled through the narrow space, making his way toward the detention level. "Jin, I'm in their computer system," Yun's voice crackled in his ear. "I've got control of some cameras and sensors. I can create blind spots for you, but not everywhere. There are manual security checks I can't override." "Understood. Just keep them confused." "Already on it. I've been sending false alerts to other sections of the ship. They're investigating phantom intruders on the upper decks. Should buy you some time." Jin emerged from the maintenance corridor into a checkpoint. 2 Krell guards stood at a security station, monitoring screens and checking personnel who passed through. There was no way around them. Jin studied the situation. The guards were alert and armed. Taking them down silently would be difficult. But he had no choice. He stepped out of the shadows and walked toward the checkpoint like he belonged there. The guards immediately noticed him. A human in combat armor was not a common sight on a Krell warship. "Intruder!" one of them shouted, reaching for his weapon. Jin moved. His rifle came up smoothly, 2 shots that dropped the first guard instantly. The second managed to draw his plasma rifle, but Jin was already diving behind a support column. Energy blasts scorched the metal where he had been standing. The guard advanced, firing continuously. Jin counted the shots. Krell plasma rifles held 20 charges. The guard was at 15, 16, 17. At 18, Jin rolled out from cover and put a bullet between the guard's eyes. Alarms began blaring immediately. Red lights flashed throughout the corridor. Jin cursed and started running. Stealth was no longer an option. "Yun, they know I'm here. How much time before they seal off the detention level?" 2 minutes, maybe 3. You need to move fast." Jin sprinted through the corridors, his enhanced physiology pushing him faster than any unaugmented human could manage. Krell guards appeared ahead, blocking his path. He didn't slow down. His rifle barked, dropping 2 guards. A third got off a shot that grazed his shoulder, but Jin put him down with a headshot. More guards poured out of side passages. Jin switched tactics, throwing a flashbang grenade that exploded in brilliant light and deafening noise. While the Krell were stunned, he charged through them, using his momentum and superior training to break their line. He reached the detention level entrance just as the security doors began to close. Jin dove under them, rolling to his feet on the other side. The massive doors sealed behind him with a thunderous clang. He was in. But now the entire ship knew someone was attacking them. Jin checked his ammunition. Half gone already, and he hadn't even reached his brother yet. He reloaded and moved deeper into the detention level, following the map on his wrist. Cell after cell lined the corridor, most of them empty. The Krell didn't take many prisoners. They preferred to kill their enemies on the battlefield. The fact that they had kept Day alive meant they had plans for him, plans that Jin intended to disrupt. He found the right cell at the end of the corridor. Through the energy barrier, he could see a figure slumped against the wall. Day looked terrible, covered in bruises and burns, one eye swollen shut, but he was alive. "Day!" Jin called out. His brother's head lifted slowly. When Day saw him, a weak smile crossed his battered face. "Took you long enough." Jin worked on the cell controls using the override codes Yun had provided. The energy barrier flickered and died. He rushed in and caught Dai as his brother tried to stand. "Can you walk?" "Can I walk? Jin, I can barely breathe. They broke half my ribs. But yeah, I'll walk. Let's get out of this place." Jin supported his brother's weight and they moved back toward the entrance. But when they reached it, they found a problem. 50 Krell guards had gathered outside the sealed doors, weapons ready. And behind them stood Commander Vorath, his yellow eyes gleaming with anticipation. Reaper unleashed. The security doors opened slowly, revealing Commander Vorath and 50 armed Krell warriors. The aliens formed a semicircle, plasma rifles aimed at Jin and Day. Vorath stood at the center, his massive frame covered in ornate battle armor. He looked at Jin with curiosity and amusement. "So," Vorath said in perfect English, "the rumors are true. The Ghost of Terra himself has come to rescue his brother. How touching." Jin lowered Day carefully against the wall, keeping himself between his brother and the Krell. His mind calculated angles, distances, and odds. 50 enemies, limited ammunition, his brother injured and unable to fight. The numbers were not in his favor. "You know who I am," Jin said calmly. "Then you know what happens next." Vorath laughed, a deep rumbling sound. "I know the stories. The human who has killed thousands of our warriors, the phantom who strikes from darkness and disappears like smoke. But stories are just stories. You are surrounded, outnumbered, and outgunned. Your legend ends here." "No," Jin said quietly. "Yours does." He moved. What happened next would be analyzed by military tacticians for years to come. Jin's combat augmentations pushed his reflexes to the absolute limit of human capability. Time seemed to slow as adrenaline flooded his system. He drew both pistols in a blur of motion, firing before the Krell could react. 2 guards dropped instantly, bullets through their skulls. Jin was already moving, diving behind a support column as plasma fire lit up the corridor. He came out on the other side, both weapons barking. 3 more Krell fell. The warriors tried to adjust, to track this impossibly fast human, but Jin was always somewhere else. He moved like water, flowing from cover to cover, his weapons finding targets with mechanical precision. Every shot was a kill, every movement purposeful. A Krell warrior charged him with a plasma blade. Jin dropped his empty pistol, caught the warrior's wrist and broke it with a twist. He took the blade and drove it through the warrior's throat, then used the dying alien as a shield while he reloaded. Vorath watched in growing disbelief. This wasn't possible. No single warrior, regardless of species, could stand against 50 trained soldiers. Yet the human was doing exactly that. "Kill him! Kill him!" Vorath roared. The Krell pressed forward, but the narrow corridor worked against them. They couldn't bring their numbers to bear effectively. Jin used this advantage ruthlessly. He threw grenades that scattered the warriors. He used the environment, shooting pipes that released scalding steam and hitting power conduits that exploded in showers of sparks. A plasma bolt grazed his leg, burning through his armor. Jin ignored the pain and kept moving. Another bolt hit his shoulder. He switched his rifle to his other hand without missing a beat, continuing to fire with the same deadly accuracy. 15 Krell down, then 20, then 30. The remaining warriors began to hesitate. Fear crept into their eyes, fear of this human who fought like a demon. They had heard the stories, dismissed them as propaganda. Now they understood the stories were real. "Stand your ground," Vorath commanded, but his voice carried a hint of uncertainty. Jin's rifle clicked empty. He discarded it and drew his combat knife. A Krell warrior rushed him, and Jin sidestepped the charge, his blade opening the warrior's throat. Another came from the left. Jin ducked under the swing and drove his knife up through the warrior's jaw into his brain. The corridor had become a slaughterhouse. Bodies lay everywhere. Smoke filled the air, and blood, both red and the purple-black of Krell, covered the floor. And still Jin fought, relentless and unstoppable. "Tay," Jin said into his comm while avoiding a plasma blade slash. "Any time now would be good." "Charges are set. Detonating in 3, 2, 1. A massive explosion rocked the ship. The lights flickered and died, replaced by emergency lighting. Alarms blared even louder than before. Vorath's eyes widened as he realized what had happened. "The shields are down," one of his officers reported through his comm. "All shield generators destroyed." Jin used the moment of distraction to his advantage. He charged forward, knife in hand, moving through the remaining Krell warriors like a scythe through wheat. His movements were poetry of violence, economical, efficient, deadly. Within 2 minutes, only Vorath remained standing. The Krell commander looked around at the carnage, his expression a mixture of rage and disbelief. 50 of his best warriors, destroyed by a single human. It defied everything he knew about combat, about tactics, about the natural order of the universe. "You!" Vorath growled, drawing a massive plasma blade. "Face me yourself, human. Let us see if you are truly worthy of your reputation." Jin wiped his blade clean on a fallen warrior's uniform. His body ached, his armor was scorched and cracked, and blood ran from multiple wounds, but his eyes were cold and focused. "You should have killed my brother when you had the chance," Jin said. "Now you get to meet Reaper." They circled each other. Vorath was huge, 7 feet of muscle and fury. His blade crackled with energy, capable of cutting through steel. Jin looked small in comparison, just a man with a knife, but size wasn't everything. Vorath struck first, his blade coming down in a devastating arc. Jin moved aside at the last possible moment, the energy blade missing him by inches. He countered with a slash at Vorath's arm, but the Krell's armor deflected it. They traded blows, moving through the corridor in a deadly dance. Vorath had strength and reach. Jin had speed and skill. The Krell commander's attacks were powerful but telegraphed. Jin's were precise and unpredictable. A plasma blade slash caught Jin's side, burning through armor and flesh. He grunted but used the pain to fuel his focus. He feinted left, then went right, his knife finding a gap in Vorath's armor. The blade sank deep into the Krell's thigh. Vorath roared and backhanded Jin, sending him flying into a wall. The impact drove the air from his lungs. Vorath advanced, blade raised for the killing blow. Jin rolled aside as the blade came down, striking the floor where he had been. He came up inside Vorath's guard and drove his knife into the Krell's knee joint. Vorath stumbled, and Jin pressed his advantage. He moved with controlled fury, striking at joints and weak points in the armor. Vorath tried to defend, but Jin was too fast, too skilled. The fight ended with Jin's knife at Vorath's throat, the Krell commander on his knees. "Do it," Vorath gasped. "End this." Jin pressed the blade harder, drawing blood. Then he stopped. He stepped back, removing the knife from Vorath's throat. "No," Jin said. "You live. You go back to your empire and tell them what happened here. Tell them that humanity protects its own. Tell them that if they come for us again, they won't face armies or fleets. They'll face more like me. And we don't stop. We don't surrender. We don't quit. He turned to Day, who had watched the entire fight with awe despite his pain. Jin helped his brother to his feet. Can you walk? After watching that? I'll run if you need me to. They moved toward the extraction point, leaving Vorath bleeding on the floor among the bodies of his warriors. Jin kept his weapon ready, but no more Krell tried to stop them. Hey, we're coming out. Be ready. Already here, sir, and you're going to want to hurry. Half the Krell fleet just jumped in system. They're not happy. Jin and Day reached the docking bay where the Silent Blade waited. Tay was already aboard, his demolitions work complete. They got Day into the ship and Yun immediately began treating his injuries. As Hai pulled away from the Blood Fang, they could see the damage Tay had done. The massive ship was dead in space, shields down, engines offline. Escape pods were launching as the crew abandoned ship. Let's go home, Jin said quietly. The Silent Blade engaged its cloaking system and disappeared into the void, leaving the Krell fleet behind. Fear across the galaxy. The Silent Blade jumped through hyperspace, putting distance between themselves and the Krell fleet. In the medical bay, Yun worked on Day's injuries with steady hands. 3 broken ribs, a dislocated shoulder, second-degree burns on his back and arms, and more bruises than Yun could count. You're lucky, Yun said, injecting a bone-healing compound. Another few days with the Krell and these injuries would have been permanent. Day managed a weak laugh. Lucky, sure. That's exactly how I feel. Jin stood nearby, watching his brother. His own wounds had been patched up. The leg burn, the shoulder graze, the cut on his side from Vorath's blade. Nothing serious. He had endured worse during his years of operations. How long until we reach Coalition space? Jin asked. Hay's voice came through the intercom. 6 hours at current speed, but we have a problem. Long-range sensors are picking up Coalition ships on an intercept course. They're not here to escort us home. They're here to arrest us. Jin had expected this. They had stolen a prototype ship, disobeyed direct orders, and invaded foreign territory. By military law, they were traitors. The fact that they had saved Day didn't change that. Can we avoid them? Tay asked, joining them in the medical bay. Not indefinitely, Hai replied. Eventually we'll need to dock somewhere for supplies and fuel. And the moment we do, they'll have us. Jin was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he smiled, not his usual cold expression, but something genuine. Then we don't avoid them. We go home and face the consequences. Day looked at his brother in surprise. Jin, they'll put you in prison, all of you. Your careers will be destroyed. Maybe, but you're alive. That's worth it. The 6 hours passed quickly. During that time, something unexpected happened. The security footage from the Bloodfang attack began spreading across the galactic network. Someone, the Krell themselves, or perhaps a third party, had released the recordings. Yun pulled up the footage on the medical bay screen. They watched as Jin fought through 50 Krell warriors, moving with inhuman speed and precision. They watched him face Vorath in single combat. They watched him win. This is spreading everywhere, Yun said, scrolling through reports. Every human colony, every alien species with access to the network. The Krell tried to show our weakness by broadcasting Day's capture. Now everyone is seeing what happened when they pushed us too far. The footage showed something that words could never convey, the true capability of a human warrior pushed to his limit. Alien species across the galaxy watched in shock. The humans, those small creatures they had considered weak, possessed warriors like this. Military analysts from a dozen species studied the footage frame by frame. Jin's movements, his tactics, his absolute refusal to stop fighting despite being outnumbered and wounded. It defied their understanding of combat. On Krell worlds, the video caused panic. If one human could do this, what could 1,000 do? What could a million? The Dominion High Council convened emergency meetings. They had captured a human soldier as a show of strength. Instead, they had unleashed something far more dangerous, proof that humanity was not prey, but predator. The Silent Blade emerged from hyperspace near a coalition military station. Immediately, 3 warships moved to intercept them. Hay received a transmission ordering them to power down weapons and prepare to be boarded. "This is it," Tay said. "Court-martial, here we come." But something unexpected happened. As they approached the station, ships began launching, not to attack, to form an honor guard. Dozens of coalition vessels arranged themselves in formation, creating a corridor for the Silent Blade to fly through. "What's happening?" Hay asked, confused. A new transmission came through. Admiral Song appeared on screen, but his expression was different than before. He looked proud. "Captain Kim, on behalf of the United Earth Coalition, welcome home. Dock at Bay 7. There are people who want to thank you." The Silent Blade entered the station and docked. When the airlock opened, Jin expected military police waiting to arrest them. Instead, he found hundreds of soldiers, officers, and civilians lined up in the hangar bay. As Jin and his team emerged, supporting the injured Day, the crowd began to applaud. It started as scattered clapping, then grew into a thunderous ovation. People cheered, shouted Jin's name, saluted. Some were crying. Jin stood frozen, not understanding what was happening. Admiral Song approached, smiling. "You disobeyed orders, stole a ship, and invaded foreign territory. By all rights, I should throw you in the brig." "Yes, sir," Jin said simply. "But the galaxy has seen what you did. The Krell have sued for peace, not just with us, but with every species they've been threatening. You've changed the political landscape of known space in 24 hours. The Admiral held out his hand. "Thank you for bringing your brother home." Jin shook his hand, still processing everything. The charges against him and his team were quietly dropped. The coalition couldn't punish them, not when they had become heroes to billions of humans across the colonies. Over the following weeks, the impact of Jin's rescue became clear. The Krell Dominion, facing the reality of human capability, withdrew from contested territories and opened diplomatic channels. Other aggressive species followed suit, reconsidering their strategies toward humanity. The legend of Reaper spread across the galaxy. Jin became a symbol, proof that humanity, despite being physically weaker than most species, possessed something far more dangerous: determination, loyalty, the absolute refusal to abandon their own. Military academies from human and alien civilizations studied the Bloodfang footage. Jin's tactics became required teaching material. The phrase, "they came for one, so one came for them," entered the galactic lexicon, describing the human tendency to risk everything to save their own. Jin was offered promotions, medals, and public appearances. He declined them all. Instead, he requested a transfer to Training Command. He wanted to teach the next generation of operators to pass on his skills and experience. 2 months after the rescue, Jin visited Day at the rehabilitation center. His brother was recovering well, the physical injuries healing. The mental ones would take longer, but Day was strong. He would survive. They sat together in Day's room, watching news broadcasts about the changing political situation. A reporter was interviewing alien diplomats about humanity's place in the galaxy. The consensus was clear. Humans were no longer to be underestimated. "You know what's funny?" Day said. "I spent my whole career trying to live up to your reputation, trying to be as good as my brother, and now the entire galaxy knows about you. How am I supposed to compete with that?" Jin smiled. "You don't compete. You survived torture, refused to break, and kept faith that help would come. That takes strength I'm not sure I have. You're a hero in your own right," says the man who fought 50 aliens alone. "I had help. Hey. Yun, they made it possible. Day looked at his brother seriously. Do you regret it? Risking everything? Throwing away the rules? Jin thought about the question. He thought about the court-martial he had faced, the career he had risked, the people he might have let down by disobeying orders. Then he thought about his brother, alive and healing. No, Jin said simply. I'd do it again. They sat in comfortable silence, watching Earth rise over the lunar horizon through the window. Two brothers, survivors of a war that had changed the galaxy. In war rooms across known space, military leaders continued to study the footage from the Blood Fang. They analyzed Jin's every move, trying to understand how one soldier could achieve so much. But they missed the crucial point. It wasn't about tactics or training or technology. It was about something deeper, the human instinct to protect family, to never leave anyone behind, to fight impossible odds because surrender was not an option. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson. Humanity might be young, might be physically weaker than many species, might have less advanced technology than some civilizations, but they possessed something that could not be measured or quantified. They had warriors like Jin Kim. They had soldiers like Dae Kim. They had people who would risk everything for each other, and that made them more dangerous than any weapon, any fleet, any army the galaxy had ever seen. Commander Vorath, recovering from his injuries on a distant Krell world, watched the same footage everyone else was watching. He saw himself defeated, humiliated, left alive to carry a message. He understood now what he had not understood then. The humans had not shown mercy. They had shown a warning. Touch one of them, and they all come for you. Vorath looked at his hands, still shaking from the memory of that battle. He had faced death 100 times in his career and never felt fear. But when he closed his eyes, he saw Jin Kim's cold gaze and felt terror. The humans called him Reaper. Now Vorath understood why. Across the galaxy, in 1,000 different languages, the story spread. Humanity's message was clear and simple. We protect our own, no matter the cost, no matter the odds, no matter the enemy. And in that message, the galaxy heard not a threat, but a promise. If you came for one, one would come for you, and that one might be enough.